Imagine a room full of people, wealthy, educated, influential, all frozen in fear while a billionaire CEO raises his hand against his pregnant wife. Everyone watches, but no one moves, not a whisper, not a step, until the door swings open, and a group of leather-clad bikers walk in, not to cause trouble, but to do what no one else had the courage to do. Silence is often seen as a harmless response, but in situations of abuse, silence becomes a powerful weapon, one that works in favor of the abuser rather than the victim. When people witness violence but choose not to intervene, they send an unspoken message: the abuser can continue without consequences. This silent permission becomes a shield, allowing harmful behavior to grow stronger and more frequent. It tells the aggressor that those around them are too intimidated, too uncomfortable, or too afraid to interfere. In the case of the billionaire CEO, everyone in the room rationalized their silence. Some were employees worried about losing their jobs. Others were guests who didn't want to be involved in family matters. A few perhaps believed it wasn't their place to step in, but each person who looked away contributed to the progression of the abuse. Every second of hesitation became another opportunity for the aggressor to assert dominance and inflict harm. Silence became the greatest enabler in the room. The tragic reality is that most victims of abuse are not only fighting their abuser, they are fighting the silence surrounding them. They face a world that often doubts their experiences, fears confrontation, and prioritizes comfort over justice. Without support, victims begin to believe the situation is hopeless. They feel trapped because the people around them refuse to acknowledge their suffering. Silence does not neutralize the situation. It amplifies the imbalance of power. It reinforces the abuser's control while stripping the victim of safety, dignity, and the belief that someone might help them. When people fail to speak up, they unintentionally allow violence to continue unchecked. True neutrality does not exist in moments of abuse. You are either helping stop it or helping it happen. Power, when unchecked, can distort reality, not only for the person who holds it, but also for those who witness it. When someone possesses wealth, influence, and social standing, people around them often assume they are incapable of wrongdoing. Their polished public image becomes a mask, hiding the darker behaviors that occur behind closed doors. This creates a dangerous illusion, the belief that power equals integrity. In truth, the two are not the same. The billionaire CEO in this story lived behind such a shield. His position commanded respect, and his reputation intimidated anyone who might challenge him. Employees feared the consequences of speaking up. Friends and acquaintances worried about losing access to his wealth or influence. Even strangers hesitated to intervene because society often teaches us to treat powerful people differently, as if they operate under a separate set of rules. This environment of protection becomes fertile ground for abuse. When a person feels untouchable, they can begin to believe they are above accountability. They may manipulate others into silence or rely on their status to discredit anyone who questions their behavior. Wealth can buy privacy, lawyers, and influence, creating a barrier that victims struggle to break through. Even when evidence is clear, people may convince themselves that someone so successful could never be capable of such cruelty. But power itself isn't the problem. It's the way society reacts to it. We often confuse authority with morality, assuming those at the top must have earned their place through strength of character. In reality, power can magnify flaws just as easily as it magnifies virtues. When wrongdoing goes unchallenged simply because the wrongdoer is powerful, society becomes complicit. A shield formed by fear, admiration, or hesitation allows abuse to thrive without resistance. Bravery is often misunderstood. People imagine it as something that belongs to heroes in movies, soldiers on battlefields, or individuals with extraordinary physical strength. But in reality, true bravery is not loud, dramatic, or muscular. It is simply the willingness to act when action is necessary. It is the decision to step forward while others step back. It is choosing to protect someone even when you feel fear, uncertainty, or vulnerability. In the situation with the billionaire CEO, the room was filled with people, some stronger, some wealthier, some more educated than the bikers who eventually intervened. Yet none of them acted. They had strength but not courage. They had power but not integrity. They had the ability to speak or move, but instead chose to remain frozen in silence. Then walked in the bikers, men who society often stereotypes as aggressive, dangerous, or problematic. But they didn't rely on appearance or intimidation. Their bravery came from action. They saw a pregnant woman in danger, recognized the imbalance of power in the room, and chose to confront it rather than ignore it. They didn't wait for someone more qualified or more important. They didn't consider the CEO's status or wealth. They simply acted because it was the right thing to do. That is the essence of bravery, doing what must be done, regardless of how difficult or uncomfortable it is. It proves that you don't need fame, money, or authority to make a difference. You only need the courage to move when others stand still. True bravery is quiet. It doesn't brag. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't ask for permission. It steps in, speaks up, and stands firm in the face of wrongdoing. It belongs to anyone willing to act, not just those who appear strong on the surface. Society has a habit of making snap judgments based on appearance, clothing, status, wealth, tattoos, or lifestyle. From these surface-level impressions, people create entire narratives about someone's character, morality, and intentions. The truth, however, is that appearances often mislead us more than they inform us. We assume the well-dressed executive is responsible, honest, and kind. We assume the rugged biker with leather and tattoos is dangerous or reckless. These assumptions can blind us to reality and, in critical situations, prevent us from recognizing who truly needs help and who can offer it. In the story of the billionaire CEO, his expensive suit, polished shoes, and status created a false image of respectability. People saw his wealth and assumed he must be a good man, a successful leader, someone incapable of cruelty. Meanwhile, the bikers, loud engines, rough clothing, intimidating presence, were automatically judged as troublemakers. The room of silent bystanders trusted the CEO because he looked respectable, and they feared the bikers because they looked rebellious. This contrast exposes a powerful truth. Character has nothing to do with appearance. The CEO, despite his wealth and status, used his power to harm someone vulnerable. The bikers, despite society's assumptions, used their strength to protect someone in danger. Their actions proved that morality comes from the heart, not from clothing, titles, or bank accounts. When we rely on appearances, we risk supporting the wrong people and ignoring those who genuinely care. We miss the opportunity to recognize true bravery, compassion, and integrity. We allow stereotypes to guide our reactions instead of evaluating behavior. Judging by appearances blinds us to the truth, keeps us from intervening at the right moments, and allows abusers to hide behind polished images while heroes remain unnoticed. One of the greatest misconceptions in society is the belief that only special people, leaders, experts, or powerful figures, have the ability to create real change. We often underestimate ourselves, thinking our actions won't matter or our voices won't be heard. But history repeatedly proves that extraordinary change is almost always sparked by ordinary individuals who simply chose to act when the moment demanded it. They were not born heroes. They didn't wait for permission. They just stepped forward. In the incident involving the billionaire CEO, the room was filled with important people, executives, investors, socialites, people society considers influential, yet none of them acted. They calculated risks. They worried about consequences. They wanted to protect themselves, so they froze, watching harm unfold in front of them. Their silence became a barrier that protected the abuser rather than the victim. Then came the bikers, regular people with no status in that elite environment. They were not wealthy. They were not high-ranking professionals. They did not belong to the CEO world of power, and yet, when they saw danger, they didn't hesitate. They didn't overthink. They didn't question their worthiness to intervene. They stepped in, proving that extraordinary change often comes from unexpected sources. This moment highlights a powerful truth. You don't need a title to do what's right. You don't need authority to defend someone. You don't need influence to make an impact. Every single person has the potential to become a turning point in someone else's life. A single act, calling for help, stepping between danger, speaking up, can change the direction of a moment, a life, or even a community. Ordinary people become extraordinary when they choose courage over comfort, action over silence, and humanity over fear. Abuse is not a private issue, it is a community issue. When someone is being harmed, the responsibility does not rest solely on the victim to escape or defend themselves. In many cases, victims are physically overpowered, emotionally manipulated, financially controlled, or psychologically trapped. Expecting them to save themselves is not only unrealistic, it is unfair. That is why the responsibility to intervene belongs to everyone who witnesses the abuse, senses it, or has the ability to offer support. In the case of the Billionaire CEO, many bystanders convinced themselves that it was not their place to intervene. They believed it was a personal matter, or that stepping in could cause legal or professional trouble. Others were simply afraid, but by doing nothing, they allowed the abuse to continue. Their inaction sent a silent message. The abuser's comfort mattered more than the victim's safety. This is a dangerous mindset that exists in countless situations around the world. Standing up against abuse does not always mean physically stepping in. It can mean calling for help, alerting security, documenting evidence, comforting the victim, or creating a distraction to stop the immediate danger. There are many safe ways to intervene without putting oneself at risk. The key is to act, because action disrupts abuse while silence strengthens it. When the bikers stepped forward, they demonstrated what collective responsibility looks like. They didn't hesitate. They didn't ask who the abuser was. They didn't decide it was none of their business. They saw a human being in danger and responded. That is the foundation of a safe society. People who look out for one another, regardless of status, wealth, or relationship. When everyone understands that stopping abuse is a shared duty, we create a world where victims are protected, abusers are held accountable, and silence no longer enables harm. So let this be a reminder, not of fear, but of responsibility. We live in a world where abuse can hide behind success, where cruelty can wear a suit, and where silence can become more dangerous than the harm itself. But we also live in a world where ordinary people can rise as protectors, where courage can appear in unexpected forms, and where doing the right thing can shift the entire course of someone's life. The bikers didn't walk in to be heroes, they walked in to be human. And that is what we must all strive to be, not spectators, not silent observers, but human beings who step forward when others step back. Because in the end, it only takes one moment of courage to break the cycle of fear. It only takes one voice to shatter the silence, and it only takes one person to save a life. Let that person be you.